and we got 43% of the vote in the general. So I was planning on flipping that blue bubble you guys are worried about anyways. All right, so we're on our way to do that. I think that with the addition of Jerome, we got this. We got the numbers to do it. So I guess I'll start with the elephant in the room. I was indicted by the federal government under the Obama administration. I was charged. I went through two trials, and I was acquitted. So during that process, the legislature stood up and they signed a letter. They wrote a letter and they signed it, and there was 53 legislators that signed that letter that said that they felt there was a miscarriage of justice occurring in my trial. After that, Raul Labrador, who was our congressman at the time, took that letter and he wrote a cover letter and he brought it to Sessions. Jeff Sessions was the AG at the time, and he read it. He told the DOJ to offer me a misdemeanor, and I came home. So I went through 19 months being held. I went through 2 federal trials. I learned a lot. I learned a whole lot. When I got home, I went to the Capitol to thank those legislators that signed the letter for me. I wanted to look them all in the eye and tell them thank you. And when I was there, Representative Dorothy Moon asked me to stand up in the gallery. And I stood up, and I got a standing ovation from the legislative body, the House. And I realized right then that we had a platform, that we could go and we could talk to these people who are making the laws and affecting our lives. They knew who I was. And so I went and I started talking to them and speaking with them, and first thanked them for signing that letter. And I started to understand that I could get to the legislation before it went to committee. That I can ask them about bills coming in and what they look like and what they said, and get a hold of them and read them. And in doing that, we can look at it and we can find out where the language is bad, unhealthy, irresponsible, where it would limit our constitutional rights. And it's usually just one line, 1 or 2 lines, you know, and we go to those legislators and we say, hey, we think line 12, it's a bad deal. It's going to open up Idahoans to a 4th Amendment violation or a First Amendment violation, or what have you. And we get them to change that language before the bill's even introduced, before it even starts its journey. We get rid of the bad language. So I did that for 2 years with my organization, and we had some volunteers, and we looked at this legislation. We did some really good work. We killed Marcy's Law. We got the sponsor. So how many guys know Marcy's Law? You guys familiar with Marcy's Law?
A little bit.
So, out-of-state billionaire, he wants to take our system and turn it on its head. He wants us to focus on the rights of the accused. Oh, sorry, the rights of the victim. It's supposed to be the rights of the accused, right? Our whole Constitution is built on the rights of the accused, because that's where it's important. That's whose rights matter, because I can accuse you or you of anything. Once you've been accused, our system is built on your rights, you know. And so what Marcy's Law did was it came in, it turned that on its head, and it gave the rights to the victim, because it made everybody feel good. And there was some backdoor Second Amendment red flag stuff in there, and it was going to be where the victim could say, hey, I'm scared because X, Y, and Z, so now they're going to need to take away the guns because the victim's scared. What we did, we went to the person who sponsored that legislation, and we went and we said, hey, we got some concerns about this bill. Now, everybody in that building had heard about the Second Amendment issues, right? They were all getting calls and everything. And the guy, one of the senators, he says, it doesn't even say gun in the bill, right? What is your... And we said, no, we want to talk about the Fourth Amendment. We want to talk about the fundamental process and the rights of the accused, and you're taking our system and turning it on its head. We convinced him what he was doing was wrong, and he took his name off of his own bill, and it died. So Marcy's Law is in 15, 17 states, something like that. We were able to push it off, tell that out-of-state money no thank you, because we went and we did citizen lobbying to our legislature and told them what we thought was wrong with the bill, right? And so we learned the process in that. We learned how this legislation comes into effect and what you need to do to get rid of that bad language. Some of the senators actually called us constitutional advisors. And that was when I realized I knew we were doing something good, right? Advising the legislature on the Constitution and on our rights. And so the next indicated step for me was running. Because I know now that one vote matters. The one vote in there can make all the difference in the world, right? Just this last time, we just watched a veto come, and the governor vetoes a bill, right? And it's got to go back to the legislature so they can override the veto, and it dies by three or four votes. This happens all the time, and so that one vote can make such a big difference. And I realized that I needed to try to get in there. Well, last election, some of the legislators came to me and they said, Michelle's running unopposed. I said, okay, I'll run. And I did it just in the beginning because I don't think anybody should get to walk right in there, right? I didn't think there was a very good chance that I'm going to beat a 10-year incumbent senator in a blue bubble, most popular Democrat, whatever. But we went through and we talked to people, and I gave people my idea of responsible government. That's why I'm here. I think that we all need to bring the message of responsible government. It's not right, it's not left, it's responsible government. And that's where I'm coming from. That resonated with a lot of people. And I started to talk to them and figure out what their issues were. And honestly, folks, I think I'm going to be a good senator. I think I can get in there and really make a difference for these people. And then the vote happened, and we got 43% in the general. And so I realized that with a little bit of work, a little bit more work, we can really do this. And that's what I'm here to tell you guys really today is up in Blaine County, there was 350 Democrats who registered Republican to vote in our primary.
Yeah.
Okay? So what we need to do is talk to everybody we know and get them to come vote in the primary, right? Because my opponent, if you look at her voting record, let me put it this way, Michelle Stennett's up north in Ketchum right now saying Lori Likely's the one. She's advocating for Lori because her voting record is similar. They're very similar. And the more Blaine County figures that out, the more we need to go ahead and get involved in the primary down here. And 380 doesn't seem like a lot, but it can sway a primary. And if we don't get the Republicans out to vote in this primary for true conservatives, we're going to end up with rhinos, with people who have a voting record that's 2 points away from the Democrat. So that's the big one, is we just got to get that vote out, go door to door, come help these good candidates go door to door. We've got the data that shows us who votes in the primary. We can go and talk to those individuals specifically, each one, and say, hey, this is why you should vote for this candidate. That's what's going to make the difference. Putting in an hour or two and going to those doors is huge. So I'm asking for your help, for everybody here. We need your help going to these doors. What am I going to do? What have I been doing? So talking to people in the district, I'm asking what's the biggest issue that you find right now? And there's a lot of them. But parents are really, really upset right now because they don't think they're domestic terrorists for participating in their children's education. And the more I talk to people, Democrat, Republican, right, whatever, parents, if they have kids, are worried right now. And they're worried that they're no longer going to be able to participate in their children's education. And so what I did was started working on a bill that would define domestic terrorism properly. And where we ended up was the Republican Party in Minidoka created a resolution. And that resolution went to the Republican winter meeting. And I went and I testified for that resolution, and it passed. And in that resolution, it asked that our Republican lawmakers define terrorism and domestic terrorism properly. What do I mean by properly? So when I was going through my situation, I kept waiting for the federal government to drop another charge, the charge of domestic terrorism. I figured that was coming. The Patriot Act, all this stuff. So as I'm looking at the laws and wondering why I haven't been hit with that charge yet, I see that they can't charge me with it by their own law, because by federal code, you have to be connected to an internationally designated terrorist organization to be charged with terrorism or domestic terrorism. So this is the law that stopped them from doing what they wanted to do, which was charge me as a domestic terrorist. They had plenty of other charges, right? This is part of the issue too, is the confusion that exists between terrorism and crime, right? We can have a crime without it being terrorism. We've got lots of crimes on the book. Terrorism is a specific thing, and it needs a specific definition, and it needs to be separated from crimes. So what we did was take that language and we put it into a bill defining domestic terrorism on the state level. That bill went through last year. It passed the House, and then it died in the Senate, where all good bills go to die, right? So this year, we went through the resolution process, right? Got it. So that's the Republican Party at the lowest level of the people saying, this is what we want our Republican legislature to do. I took that resolution to Senator Winder, who's the pro tem of the Senate. And I said, listen, this is a simple bill, comes into line with the federal code, and it protects parents. And it protects all Idahoans, not just parents, all Idahoans. And we talked about it, we discussed it, and he said, okay, this is a good bill. We're going to do it. He took it, ran it, and it passed the Senate 50-5. Right? So it passed the Senate. They killed it last time. We went, we did it right, we approached the right person, and got it done. So it goes to the House, right? S1398. It goes to the House, passes the Senate, goes to the House. It gets put in Cheney's committee. Greg Cheney, you guys know who he is? You heard his name? He's just another legislator that's over from Caldwell, but not a conservative.
Wasn't he the guy that had domestic battery charges?
Yeah,
that guy.
His open disdain for the First Amendment is impressive. Let's say that. So our bill ends up in his committee, and now the House won't let it out of committee. The same thing that the House says is the problem with the Senate, right? They turn around and do. It's all a game in there. It's all a chess and a game. And I'm telling you, I've got a pretty good idea of the game. I've got a pretty good idea of the chessboard. And if I didn't have to spend my time in Blaine County twisting wire nuts, and I can go spend my time in that building working for you guys, I'm better at it than they are. And I'll get it done. I promise. Thing is, I can't go down there and be there and lobby for it every day because I got to twist those wire nuts and pay for my house, right? So I'm not a politician, not in the normal sense. I've got a goal, and my goal is protecting Idahoans. I know the process that they're using with that whole labeling thing that they're doing. And it's in 2014 when they did it to me, I was one of the first ones, right? Harry Reid got on TV, he said anybody that came here was a domestic terrorist, right? Now, let's talk about the Bundy Ranch a little bit, I guess, right? I didn't go because I've got an affinity for cattle. I like cheeseburgers and steaks, but I traveled to Nevada in 2014 because I saw a heavy-handed nature of what was occurring to people protesting. My thing is the First Amendment. I'm unapologetically defend the First Amendment no matter what. And what was happening was they were using threats and coercion to stop the First Amendment. And those people were out there protesting. They were arresting them, they were beating them. There was dogs and snipers and all kinds of stuff. And I saw these videos of these people being tased and the dogs and the attacks, all for just trying to record what was happening and protest. Constitutionally protected conduct. So I chose to go down there and see what was happening. When I was getting ready to drive down there, a friend of mine sent me an article from a Clark County administrator. It said anybody coming down here to support this better have funeral plans and a body bag. This is an elected official on TV, right? So I'm not going to be scared into not using my First Amendment. I'm just not. I refuse to be. So, and I didn't have funeral plans or a body bag. So I threw my Second Amendment in the truck and I drove down there. Not to intimidate anybody, but to protect my constitutionally protected rights, to protect my physical being. And we got there, the sheriff comes and he says, hey guys, there's a big crowd protest, right? He says, hey everybody, the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, not Black Lives Matter, the BLM is leaving, they're ceasing their operation, they're going home. So we figured we drove all the way down there for nothing, we'll go to Vegas and get a cheeseburger and drive home, right? About an hour later, Cliven tells the cowboys, hey, go get the cattle if they're still there. These cowboys ride off, and now all the protesters are getting in their vehicles, and we jump in a truck. Me and my buddy jump in a truck, and we drive down over onto the freeway, and we end up pulling off the side of the highway, and we see they're definitely not gone, right? Like the sheriff said. It looks like Fallujah across the street. Body armor, rifles, it looked like an occupying army. Camouflage, not uniforms, camouflage, right? And so I figure at that time, I assume, we're gonna sit here on the side of the road and we're gonna wave our flags until they leave, right? We're gonna protest, the protest's gonna continue right here. About 15 minutes later, a lady comes running down the highway. She says to us, they're pointing guns at the protesters in the wash, threatening to shoot us. I didn't even know there was a wash 500 yards down the road. I had been hanging out down here. Me and my friends start walking down this highway, and we're noticing there's definitely snipers on the ridges, right? And we walk down this bridge, and we find ourselves on a bridge, and I borrow some binoculars from a friend of mine, and I look down the wash, and I count 150 rifles over trucks on this crowd. And this crowd looks like you guys, right? It's not an army, it's not a militia, it's a bunch of people with their hands up, saying we've had enough, go home, stop harassing us. At that time, I realized that this situation was escalating, right? At that time, I realized that their snipers had me pegged, that I'm now standing on a bridge and I can see them looking at me and I'm looking at them. Then I hear them say over the loudspeaker, disperse. We've been authorized to use lethal force if you do not disperse. At that time, I had a choice to make. I took a defensive position. I made sure my rifle was operable and I watched what happened. Now, I'm here to tell you what happened isn't what they said on TV. We didn't hold them at gunpoint until they gave the cows back. the sheriff's department came in and de-escalated the situation. This is all on the discovery. It's all evidence. It's why I'm standing here talking to you right now, not sitting in jail, right? It's why I'm an innocent man. Sheriff's department came in and they said, hey guys, they came up to that front gate where the protesters and the people with the guns were staring at each other. And they came in with their loafers and their uniform and they said, hey, they told the guys with the guns, stop pointing guns at people. We're not sure who you have to ask, but we're going to take the front of this thing and we need you to back out of here. And that's what happened. So what I'm here to say is, once the authority having jurisdiction, the proper jurisdictional authority, came into play and took its authority and jurisdiction back, it de-escalated the situation. The sheriffs looked at the protesters and said, hey, you don't have to go anywhere. The people at the gate said, we're not going anywhere. And the sheriff said, you don't have to. You're well within your right. Just be nice. And everything was fine. It went from this close to an atrocity, horrible, scariest thing I've ever been in my whole life, to peaceful protest, First Amendment. All it took was 3 sheriff's deputies that were trained in de-escalation and trained to protect our constitutionally protected rights, to not infringe on those. So the TV likes to tell you guys that I'm anti-law enforcement. I have the utmost respect for law enforcement. They saved my life that day. So the idea that the land issues, the cattle, the water, those are all Cliven's battle, right? I didn't know anything about it when I drove there. I knew nothing about it. All I knew was constitutionally protected conduct, the First Amendment, and that's it. That's it. All I saw was people trying to exercise their First Amendment being met with threat of force and coercion. That's unacceptable to me. That's what you're going to get with a senator, Parker. I can tell you what my issues are, taxes, this and that, and everything else. But my issue is our system as it was designed, because it saves lives and it works properly. The checks and balances that were given to us work correctly until these outside sources come in and start manipulating it and erasing those boundaries and placing things where they shouldn't be, right? I want to go back in there and I want to maintain our republic. When I tell you guys maintain the republic, I'm talking about maintaining the checks and balances and the separations of control that are supposed to exist, that keep us safe and thriving, right? So that's where I'm coming from. That's my goal, is to get in there, look at this legislation. Number one, make sure nothing ever crosses that can lead to a situation like I was in. Make sure that the state is always upholding due process of law, the rights of the accused, right? I'm gonna come from a fundamental place, the fundamental truths that we know about our system. That's where I believe that our representation needs to be holding the line. We can talk about criminal justice reform and all the little things that need to happen there, and there's a bunch. But until we get to the idea that government does not have rights, they have responsibilities, we're never gonna get it. We're never gonna fix anything. We're never gonna fix anything. Because right now they're telling you that they have the same rights that you do. And that's not the case. That's never the way it was gonna be intended. They have written out plain English responsibilities. And that's it. And they're to you and I. Those responsibilities. They hold responsibilities to us to maintain our rights, to maintain our economic future. Look at what happened this last 2 years, right? That's government being irresponsible. Shutting down businesses, lawful businesses, that's government being irresponsible. And so I'm trying to bring responsibility to the message, and I need your help. That's it. That's all I got, guys. My name's Eric. May 17th. I need your help. Primary. Let's do it.
This is the best part of my speech when I get to stand in front of a crowd and say, I'm Bryan Smith and I'm running against Rhino Mike Simpson for Congress. I just love saying that because everywhere I go, people are excited that finally Mike is getting a real challenge, and they're excited at the prospects of having somebody new. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up over in Canyon County. In fact, my family settled Canyon County, and I've been saying something wrong. I said they settled in 1865. I went to Canyon County this morning and looked at the shack that they built, and it was 1864. Okay. My family settled in 1864. I graduated from Nampa High School, and I graduated from there, and I've lived over in Idaho Falls since 1994. Who remembers that in 2014 I ran against Mike Simpson for Congress? If you don't remember that, raise your hand. Let's see, maybe you don't remember. Did you? Okay. Did you, anybody not live in Idaho in 2015? You didn't live here in 2015? So you didn't get to vote for me, right? And didn't you say you moved from where?
We were in Oregon. I grew up in Goody, I've been in Oregon 40 years.
I want to thank all the people that are moving here from out of state. A lot of people think these people are liberals, that they're coming in from all over, bringing their liberal values, but what I'm finding out is the people moving here from out of state are really good conservatives. They're political refugees. They're going to help us save our state, all right? Here's what I'll tell you. I ran in 2015 because, actually 2014, because at the time, Mike Simpson was just too liberal. You remember like Cash for Clunkers? Anybody remember that program? It was so wildly successful that they took all the used cars off the market and nobody could buy a used car, and if you were poor, you couldn't even buy a car to get to work, okay? There was also the bank bailout. Remember back in 2008, Mike had voted for that. And now I feel like he's accomplished the impossible. Mike has gotten much more liberal since 2014. I never would have thought that was possible. He's been in Washington for how long? Does anybody know? 22 long years. These aren't short years. These aren't regular years. For him, they're long years. During the time he's been there, he's opposed term limits. He has been paid millions of dollars in salaries and benefits. He's also expanded the cost of government, massively increased spending. In fact, last week, you may remember that the Democrats passed a bill out of committee, a spending bill. How much was it for? No, that was 1.5 trillion, right? They passed it in the middle of the night, and Nancy Pelosi says that's not true. It was 3 in the morning. So it wasn't exactly in the middle. By 11 o'clock the next morning, this 2,900-page monstrosity that nobody could have read because nobody knew the hearing was in the middle of the night, Mike Simpson signed it by 11 o'clock. It's full of pork and all kinds of spending. And he's also supported bigger government. And here's a new one. If you didn't know this, raise your hand, but I feel like I need to tell you. He also, I'll bet you know because we've talked about it. He also supported, last year in January, he co-sponsored a bill with 20 other Republicans for special transgender rights. Who knew about that? Oh, you didn't know about that? Only because I told you. Nobody knows about it. Oh, you're going to know about it before May 17th, I promise you, okay? You're going to know about it. If Mike would have had his way, he would have given special civil rights protected class status to that 6'4" swimmer swimming against women. That's what his bill would have done. Right now, it's only the NCAA that is allowing this to happen, but if that bill passed, there would be the threat of federal law to back that up. He's also been very bad on Second Amendment rights. You're probably aware of that. For example, just last week when he voted for that $1.5 trillion spending bill, there's a provision in there to fund what's called the NICS system. Who knows what the NICS system is? So NICS is you go into the gun store and they don't let you buy a gun until they do a little background check on you, right? And 9 times out of 10, you don't have a problem. But sometimes that system will come back and they'll say, oh, Eric Parker, no, he can't get a gun. Studies show that 90% of the time when you get a hit like that, it's a false positive. 90% of the time. This bill that Mike voted for last week, what it does is this. It gives money to the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, to go into sheriff's departments and police departments and train them. Train them to do what, you say? Train them that when there's a false positive, or when there's one of those positives on the NICS system, ATF from Washington will then send a bulletin to the local law enforcement, and pursuant to their training that they're going to get from all this money that's being spent, the local law enforcement will go to your house and say, Kathy, we see you're out there trying to get a gun. We'd like to ask you a few questions. That's what he signed up for. He's also been bad on other issues with the guns. And what does he want to do now? Everybody's heard about it. Anybody who hasn't heard about it probably just hasn't been in Idaho for the last who knows how long, right? What he did is he wants to breach dams. What I'll tell you is this, is his plan is totally absurd. I just spent the last day up in North Idaho in Lewiston looking at what his dam breaching would do to the barging for wheat and grain growers. It's totally off limits. It cannot happen. We cannot let this guy get away with this. Even he has said he doesn't know if his plan will work. We need to do better than this. Unfortunately, Mike's one of those guys that just keeps getting worse. He voted for the January 6th Witch Hunt Commission. You didn't know that? Yes, he did. He was one of 35 Republicans who joined Nancy Pelosi in that. So here's what we can do. We can do way better. When the liberals in this state expanded Obamacare, when our Republican governor vetoed the grocery sales tax repeal, and when the election, the new redistricting map threatened our election integrity, I was the lawyer each time who led the fight. All three of these fights to the Idaho Supreme Court. I think that election integrity is the issue of our day. We must require photo ID to vote in all 50 states. We have to do that to maintain our election integrity. I also think we should restart building the Trump border wall. In fact, I got an idea. We ought to call it the Trump border wall. We could actually get a gold plate and put it on there when we name it, right? I also support the America First agenda. We have to stop sending money to people who absolutely hate us. And finally, I would tell you that I'll bet that you all feel like you don't have a conservative voice in Washington. That's what I hear everywhere I go. That's what I want to do. I will be your conservative voice in Washington. I'm looking forward to the day when I'm in Washington when I win this election, and I get to speak out loudly against AOC, the liberals, the Democrats, the leftists, the rhinos who want to turn our country into a socialist dumpster fire. If they could, they would destroy the whole thing. That's what they want to do. We need to have somebody not only just represent Idaho, but we need somebody who's willing to take the fight to those people. Now, make no mistake about it, Mike is not going to go down without a fight. Go down he will, but not without a fight. He's going to sling mud at me, all right? That's what he does. He's already started. Who's seen it on TV? Anybody seen his ads on TV? You've seen his ads on TV? So this is why he does that. Because he has nothing else to do, nothing else to say. He's got nothing else to run on. He can't run on his great record because he doesn't have one. So what he does, he throws mud at me, and I'm an easy target because I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 30 years, and lawyers have always been easy targets. Let me show you how easy this is, okay? I'll show you how easy it is to make me a target. How do you get a lawyer out of a tree? You cut the rope, okay, and you get him out, all right? People laugh at that. You shouldn't be laughing at that because it's a terrible joke, right? But they laugh at that, all right, because everybody hates their ex-spouse's divorce attorney. I guarantee that's how it works. And I also help doctors get paid for their work with small businesses because we do debt collection. So, you know, if I sold ice cream, everybody would love me. Instead, I help collect money for my clients. So predictably, Mike is shamefully smearing me as a dirty debt collector. Here's my favorite line, at least I'm not a damn breacher, right? That's what he is, okay? I'm Bryan Smith, I'm running for United States Congress, and I appreciate your support, all right? And thanks for inviting me today, Lyle and Eric. What's that?
Thank you for being here.
We're so grateful to be here. Does anybody have any question for me? Anybody that's new or has a burning question they need to ask? What we'll do is, why don't we just finish up, Lyle, you're next, right? And then if you want to ask me a question, you can come ask me, or if you want to ask one now in front of everybody, we can do that. Kathy.
I just have a question about, oftentimes we send somebody like you that is all full of fire and conservatism and whatnot, and then they get there, and then you know what happens. The first year, second year, third year, whatever, you sort of start to meld with the system and learn how, and so you go over to the other side to some degree. What's going to keep you from doing that?
So, I get this question, and I finally figured out, because people ask you that, how do you prove a negative? What I can tell you is this, I don't really need this job. I've got a great job. I'm totally out of debt. I've got a beautiful piece of property I live on. And I'm not in this for a career. I'm 59. I'm not in this to go launch a new career for me. The reason I'm in this is that, and I get the same question asked a little bit differently. They say, Smith, why do you want to go to the swamp? I don't want to go to the swamp. I don't. I like what I do. I got grandkids. I'm still healthy. I got jet skis. Life is good for me, all right? I like it. But, I would ask other people, who would want to run into a burning building? Would you want to run into a burning building? No. But you would to save something that you love. And for me, I love the United States of America. I want people to be free. What happened to him is an abomination, right? Never should have happened, ever. He can never get back. It was 18, 19 months.
Yeah,
19 months stolen from him. I don't want us to be told you have to get a vaccine, and if you don't, we're not going to take it out on you. What we're going to do is we're going to tell your employer they're going to get fined $14,000 a day until you comply. That's not America. That's not our ability to make our free choices. I want people to be free to make their own choices. And so I'm not going back there because I'm a politician. I'm going back there because I want to fight for you and I want to be that voice for you. I look forward to taking on AOC. I mean, that's kind of what I do. I like that. It's what I've been doing for my clients for 30 years. They bring a big problem to me and we take it on. And so there's that. But there's also this. You know what I'm more worried about, Kathy, honestly? When I go back to Washington and I do what I say I'm going to do, are you going to stay with me?
Yes, sir.
No, what I mean is that. I can't survive without you. Right? I'm more worried when I go back there when all the liberal papers, the liberal Lewiston Tribune, the Sun Times, the Post Register, the Statesman, when all these guys and all these forces of evil conspire and they start talking about Smith's a right-wing nut job and how he's this and how he's that, and he hates the INL, and he hates children, and he hates farmers, he hates ranchers. All he can do is say no. Are you going to stay with me? That's what I'm worried about, because if you don't, I don't know how I'm going to make it. That's why part of my plan is to come back. You'll see on my website, Brian's Commitment to You. I'll come back every term. I've talked about this. Mike never comes back. I'm going to come back. There's 27 counties in the district. I'm going to visit each county one time per term at a minimum. And I'll fill it out on my website. You'll see it. Hey, Smith's all over. I'm all over now, right? So that's what I'm going to be as the congressman. You'll see it on a map on my website that I fill it out after 2 years. It'll be completely filled out. I need to stay in touch with the folks because you are where I'll get my strength. And I think when you don't stay in touch with the folks, then you drift over to the other side. Even if you're a conservative, that can happen. Make no mistake about it, Mike was never a conservative to begin with, ever. All right? So I hope that answers the question.
Yes,
That's who I am. Yes, ma'am.
How long do you be in office before you bring up the 25th?
The 25th? So what she's talking about is the 25th Amendment, where you get your president declared basically incompetent, and then you get a major upgrade with Kamala Harris. Okay? Listen, even if you could get that done, some things are worse than we have presently. All right. So I haven't really looked at that. You really have to be careful about that, because if he were to go, I think that we would get. Even I think the Democrats and the liberals are more happy with Joe Biden than they are with her. So you got to be careful of what you wish for, right? No, you don't want Kamala.
I don't want Joe Biden.
You don't want Joe Biden.
I don't care.
Okay.
She'll fall in line. Once Joe's gone, she'll fall in line and she'll toe the line because she doesn't want it.
Maybe she'll be craftier. I mean, I don't know. She is bad.
Let's go, Brandon. Period.
All right. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Next question. When you coming around, do you get any feedback from all of us where they're getting their news from? So I don't watch the news, so I've never seen any negative. I don't, hear anything about sensitive. Where I got some really good information, and that's the Idaho politics on the Telegraph, and I got to watch you speak somewhere. You had a rock background and things like this, and I thought,
So here's the problem with you. You are an informed, educated voter, okay? And a lot of people aren't, right?
but how can we, is there something that we can do to get other people listening to what you're all about, or what Eric's all about, or what Lyle's all about? Because that's what we want to do as little worker bees.
Yeah.
Of getting,
Here's what you can do.
We want to make sure they're getting the right information and finding out. When you tell me that he voted for the sixth bill that what's her bucket from
The
Wyoming,
January
that-
6th witch hunt commission against Trump.
and
Yeah.
that's exactly what it is. And you know why? It's because Cheney wants to run for president. And it's just so intertwined. And God
So
bless you.
here's what
when
I
you
can
go
tell you.
back there.
Here's what I can tell you can do. I've got palm cards that we give out.
Okay.
If people were to go to my website and
Okay.
read my website, go to my Facebook page. We put all of our TV commercials on there. I also have a really big digital presence. There's been over 400,000 complete views of my 3 advertisements right now. So we've got good digital, but they can go see my stuff on my Facebook page. If you go to my website, I do a press release for every new commercial that I do. They can watch that commercial because they're really helpful. The one I got on right now, Mike says that I'm not a Trump supporter, and there's a picture of me in 2016 at the Republican National Convention holding a Trump Pence sign with an Idaho baller next to me and my good friend Doyle Beck. We're both delegates in 2016. People have been sending me messages. I don't understand. How can you not be a Trump supporter with that picture? He's lying to you. That's how.
But say he's moving his legs.
Yeah, he is. He is. But I also have palm cards you can give out to your friends. They go to my web page. They can see my issues, and then you can tell them, hey, I heard this guy. He's not crazy, and he's going to fight for us. All right, you can do that. That'd be helpful. That'd be very helpful. Any other questions for me? Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Again, I'm Bryan Smith, and I'm running against Mike Simpson. It's time to retire the rhino. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Well, I'll back clean up for y'all. So I'm Lyle Johnstone. I was born in Jerome County, so this is home. This used to be McCleary Drive. Some of you know that. Maybe many of you don't. It's not particularly important. So rhinos aren't just in Congress. Rhinos are in Idaho. We're rhino hunting today, okay? So the likes of Lori Likely and my competitor for District 26B are the same kind of people. So this is supposed to be a representative form of government. That guy's a representative. Eric Parker is a representative candidate. He will represent you. I intend to be a representative for you in your government. We the people are the government. But we the people have to get off our tushies, get involved, get educated, which is what you're doing. Some of you've been doing it on your own time. There's a lot of scary stuff coming down the pipe, people. The globalists have Idaho in their sights. And the rhinos that work in the legislature, Likely's one of them. Nelson would be another one. They don't work for you. They use you. They basically are Democrats. They get elected as Republicans because guess what? 2/3 of Idaho elects only Republicans. Okay, there's no, when you fill out a candidacy paper to run for office, on the side of it, after you've filled out your name, address, ID, social security number, your phone number, your email address, there's 4 boxes over there. Democrat, Republican, constitutional, independent. That's how you get to be a Republican candidate. And they're not the most moral people, right? So, speaking of morality, we had a whole bunch of, we call them people's bills, but bills written by legislators that are going to benefit us, we the people of Idaho. Guess what? Basically, none of them got passed. They're like what Eric said. It passed the Senate, but it went to Cheney. Cheney's just some of the worst of the worst of the worst. It goes to Cheney's committee and it dies. Tonight, diesel is $5. Well, actually, it's 1/10 cent less than $5. So we could have dropped the fuel tax, right? But we didn't do that. You're going to get a tax cut. But we had $2 billion of excess funds. How come? Who's running the budget and why is it so upside down? Part of that may have to do with the fact that we got $18 billion worth of federal money, ARPA money, this past year. Sweet. That has chains, cables, strings, rules, regulations, right? What that means is you have less sovereignty, the state of Idaho has less sovereignty. So let me help put that in one more perspective. The budget year of 21-22, because that starts July 1 of every year, okay? 21-22, the entire state budget was $11.2 billion. 45% of that money comes from the federal government, and the state tries to hide that. They will tell you, oh, we only had a $6 billion is all we spent on our budget last year. Except the 45% of the total budget that is federal money, okay? So $11.2 billion, and we received 153% of that in federal money. Not to mention the fact that the self-appointed king still has us in emergency orders, and those are supposed to leave April 15th, and that will be, does anybody know the number of days? 763 days in emergency orders. The legislature could have stopped that anytime. Likely didn't stop it, Kaufman didn't stop it, Hartkin didn't stop it. Our little buddy out south of Twin Falls, Patrick, he didn't stop it. The people in Minidoka, Cassia County area, they didn't stop it. They all work for the same people. So if we want different representation and we want to be treated differently, then it has to be our government. It has to be people who represent you and not represent corporations. So today, what I see, why we still have vaccine mandates, because we had a Corona Pause Act. Okay, it gets through one side and it can't get through the other side. Or this one gets passed, it gets to the governor's desk. What does he do with it? Because he's the biggest IACI lackey because he came from IACI. Okay, Idaho Association of Commerce and Industry. If you don't know who those clowns are, they are not clowns, they're communists. They are financially tied to the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab. Have you heard Klaus Schwab's advertisement? By 2050, you will own nothing, and you will all be happy. Okay? They're going to inject a switch in your arm, and someday they're going to turn the 5G on and say, oh, your days are out. You're done. They're going to put you on a plastic card and tell you when you can make money, when you can spend money, and if you can travel. It's called ESG, is one of we had ESG bills this year. To stop ESG in Idaho from lending institutions who say, Dan Chatterton, you've been a bad boy and you've been hanging out with Johnstone and your government score is way down and your social score is not too hot sharp either, and so you can't borrow any money. Isn't that a great idea? And we could have stopped that in Idaho. But our local yokels didn't do it. And I don't think it would have got through the governor's office, but if you have enough people representing the people, you override a bad governor. So we have a lot of bad people to get rid of, and the governor just happens to be the top of the pile. There's a whole list of things that could have happened this year. These people have, the last 2 weeks in the legislature, have spent money like fools. Why? Because they have money to spend. They have $2 billion extra dollars laying around, right? How do you fix education? How do you not teach communism in schools? Well, you have to throw more money at it. Doesn't that fix it? And then they've lied to us. Well, we don't have CRT. No, CRT is, there's no headline. There's no chapter heading of critical race theory. It's inserted in the curriculum. It's inserted by teachers. Okay? So we got caught onto that. A lot of parents were really miffed about that after their kids had been masked for a year. And they're threatening to make them all get shots. And so they caught on to CRT. So the school system changed it over to SEL, Social Emotional Learning. Guess what? Liberty folks and the parents caught right onto that, and they said, hey, no more of that. So there's a video out there by Not the Bee. You should watch it if you haven't seen it. There was a group that came into Idaho, I think from Florida, and they interviewed principals and teachers in the Treasure Valley. And they snickered and they laughed and they called us fools because we don't understand that now they have just moved that over into mental health. See, they haven't quit. They don't want to quit. They don't intend to quit. Some of the teachers intend, no matter what, they're going to teach it anyway. This is not hard to fix. Anybody caught doing it is immediately fired and will never be hired by another Idaho school. So our Constitution says that we are to run public schools. If I had children, they would not be in a government school at all. No bueno, no bueno. We also this year could have gotten the money to follow the student. My buddy who's running against me, he wants to fund the system, okay? Lots of other people want to fund the system. Why? Because the system is broken and corrupt. All of this sort of, there are bits and pieces, there are thousands of them. What this really comes down to is two big things, and you probably, all of you have probably heard of some of them, maybe you've heard of both of them. Have you ever heard of the global reset? Let's take that back to the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, and you will own nothing and you will be happy, right? Okay? The other thing is, whatever you want to call it, Agenda 21, Agenda 2010, Agenda 2030, Facebook probably just went nuts. They're the same thing. Why do you think they're going to build 3 different windmill projects in this valley? One out by Rogerson, one over by Gooding. You haven't heard of that one, I'll bet, yet, huh? Does anybody know about that one? No? And the Lava Ridge project, which is virtually outside my back door. I will be able to set at my back door with one of those 1/2-inch size pea shooters and hit those from my house. Sustainable development. Have you heard of that? I mean, it's a buzzword, right? We have too many carbon dioxide atoms floating around in the atmosphere, right? We're all gonna die if we don't lower carbon dioxide. It's sustainable development. It is part of Agenda 2030. Go read it. It's on the web. The UN is so proud of it, they publish it. There are 59 points of how they're going to walk us into Agenda 2030. And our legislators, most of them, 85% of the 105 that we have, and our governor, and the guy who would like to be lieutenant governor, would gladly walk you right through that door into the eternity of Agenda 2030, the global reset. Idaho's in big trouble. The nation's in bigger trouble. But if we don't wise up and we don't come to our own rescue, that's where we're headed. And what we can do to stop it, I don't know. But I know if we do nothing, as we have been doing. Deb and I spent a couple hours at the gun show. It was interesting. People said, so what's going to stop you from going up there and they buy you off? So one of the guys who asked me that 4 years ago when I ran against Clark Kaufman today said, really, are you going to be that guy? And I said, yeah, Larry, I am going to be that guy. I will not be bought out. I despise these people. Hunt a rhino, okay? You get it? Okay? I'm not going to be one of those people. We've got lots of people in Idaho willing to be those people, but I'm not one of them. I despise this system to my very core. But it's going to take a whole bunch of us to get to work, knocking doors, calling friends, getting people to show up to these kinds of events, hosting some of these kinds of events with 15 or 20 of your friends, and talk some of them into it. And get conservatives to get out and vote May 17th. So I'm going to take you back to 2020, whether maybe you're all fed up with it, you're tired of it, whatever. But the numbers they speak volumes if we'll just pay attention to them, okay? So Trump's in the race, right? 2020. Do you know how many votes Trump got in November in Idaho? 550,000 votes. Okay? Do you know how many people voted May 17th of 2020 in the Republican primary?
180.
Close. 200,000 people. You see that if I did the math, that's 350,000 difference. How come? Why does that not matter? Why do we as Republicans not get that there's a Liberty and Democrat race within the Republican Party every year at the primary? I will have a race again in November because I have a Democrat to beat in November. But the first Democrat to beat is a rhino. And if we don't turn out May 17th and beat these people, it doesn't make any difference whether you vote in November, because you're going to get a Democrat. If you don't support Bryan Smith May 17th, you get a Democrat. If you don't support Eric Parker May 17th, you get a Democrat. One of the worst of the worst of the worst. If you don't support Glenita, if you live in Twin Falls, Gooding, and Camas counties, May 17th, you get a Democrat. You get Jim Patrick back. If you don't support me, you get a rhino, a Democrat. We have a long fight, a short stick, and we can win if we're willing to get in the fight. And so you either pick up, this is Glenita saying more or less, you either pick up and go to the ballot box, or we are going to have to pick up the ammo. Okay? It's coming. It's coming. So we can't save the nation, but we can start in Jerome, we can start in Shoshone, we can start in Haley. and we can clean it up, and we can move it to Boise, and we can clean that out. Then we'll worry about DC. And if we put guys like Bryan Smith in DC, then we've got a lot less to worry about. I thank you all for being here, for listening. Please go to my website, pick up information. If you need more information, I've got information. If you're willing to put signs up, send me an email, let me know. I'll have signs coming. We covet, Glenita covets your support, Eric covets your support, Brian covets your support, I covet your support. Prayers, money, and elbow grease are what's going to make this thing happen. And unfortunately, it's become a big money business, okay? If we legislators, so myself, Glenita, and Eric get elected, we won't even make $19,000 in a year. Yet it takes almost double that to get into office. I despise the system, but we got to buck up and buy into it, if you will, to make it happen. So I appreciate every one of you being here and listening and being attentive. If we can ask questions, we can mill around here for a while. We're yours to ask questions of, and we're here to serve you. And as I'd have to parallel, as Brian said, this isn't a fight I need. I'm an old guy. I'm older than he is by 5 years. So if you paid attention, you know how old I am. I don't need this fight. Okay? My house is paid for, but I am sick of being dumped on by Boise, Idaho. There's no need for it. People have said, why would you do that? And I said, well, so Smitty, would I send him? Yep, I trust him. I would send him to Boise. But he can't do that, okay? So I'm willing to go do it for you so they don't do it to us. Thank you all. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Lyle.